I am about to make one bad bitch. Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. It's me, that embroidery girl, and I'm starting off today making Ursula. So what I've done is I've traced out my character and I've just cut out her face. So all I want to do is have her face like in the tracing that you saw before. Cut that out, draw around it in a water soluble pen, and then I'm going to take my pins, you know, the same pins that I got from eBay for really cheap, and I'm going to start to pin around my design. Now I'm going to start at the top of what would be the eyes, so you can see it's like it's almost like an M shape. So I'm going to go just outside the lines, and then I'm going to put another one in directly on the top of those, and then this one here at the bottom of this M shape, just like so. Now I'm doing that in the opposite direction, and then I'm going to fill up the gaps between these other two lines like so. Just put a couple of pins in here so that I've got all of my anchoring points that I can add some threads down. Now once I've done that, I'm going to start pinning on the side. I'm not going to speed the video up, I'm going to let you watch it in real time just so that you can see the pinning sequence, because this one's a little bit more advanced than anything else I've done before on this channel. So it's kind of good for you to see exactly where I'm putting these pins and why I'm putting them, where I'm putting them. They are all going to be anchoring points that are going to be the basis of a thread line. Once I've got to this point and I'm starting to go in, if that makes sense, rather than outwards, I'm going to change the directions of my pins. So what you really want to do is when you're going outwards, when you're trying to make sure that your foundation stitch is bigger or fluting out, you're going to go over the tops of the pins. And if you want to bring that thread in, that anchoring thread in, you need to reverse your pins and draw them in, and you'll see what I mean when I thread up my needle and take the anchoring stitches up. And I want you to pin as many pins as possible really into this face. Make sure that you have regular pins in regular places, because it's really important to maintain the anchoring final thread. Okay, so today I'm going to be using a perlé. This is just a normal fine lilac perlé. I'm using a single strand. I'm coming up at the base of the chin and I'm going around these first 3 pins and then underneath these subsequent ones. So you can see what I mean where I said it flutes out and it goes back in, and now it's going to go around the top. So we've gone around the top of the eye and we're now going to come down towards the end of the M shape and then up again, and we're going to repeat that sequence downwards so that I have outlined the whole of the drawn in shape and should have a really nice base for Ursula's face. Once I've finished, I'm going to take that thread down and then I'm going to come up again, making sure that I don't come up through the same hole where the chin area is, and I'm going to put my first foundational stitch in, and it's going to be where this pin is here. So just take the back of your needle through the foundation here and just make a little loop stitch that holds on. Now once you've done that, you're going to need to come back down so that you have a single strand that's double stranded at this point. Now I want to do that simply because I want this area to be quite strong and quite rigid so that I can play around with it, and I don't want it to be flopping on me and all that kind of stuff. And once I've done that, I'm going to repeat that process on the other side, so you'll see that I have exactly the same on the opposite side. Now this is really important to keep symmetry in this design, because if you don't, you're going to end up with a lopsided weave. So I'm going to come up again through the chin, again careful not to come up through the same place that I did before, and I'm going to start a second foundational stitch right here where the next pin up is. And once I've done that, I'm not going to add a buttonhole stitch here. I'm actually going to place a second buttonhole stitch right here along. So I'm just going to take it up slightly to where the second pin is, tighten that off like so, and then I'm going to go back down through the chin again. Take your thread back down through the fabric and then repeat that process on the opposite side. Now I'm actually going to add a couple of pins either side here where the eyebrow is, just to elongate and widen the face, if that makes sense, just to make sure that I'm keeping the shape exactly how I want it to be, as the tracing is over here. So I'm going to come up again through the chin, and you will notice that it's getting quite stiff here right now. So it's going to be one of the few last stitches that we do. It's going to become coming up and then going around the top of that M shape like so. So all 3 of those pins I've gone round, and then I'm going to come back down through the chin area. Repeat on the opposite side, and then your final strand to come up is going to be right through the top of this M section that you can see me working right here. So take it up, take it down, and then you're going to go and begin your weave. Now I'm not going to be able to weave at the top of the eye, so I'm actually going to start in line with the very bottom of this M. So put a buttonhole stitch here just to keep everything nice and tight, and just be careful of the tops of your pins. And then you can start beginning your weave. Now, as always, if you watch any of my videos, the weave sequence is under, over, and once you get to one side, depending on what you've done, either under or over, you're going to repeat that sequence going under or over that final anchoring thread. So just watch the weave sequence and you'll be able to see quite clearly exactly what I'm doing. I'm making sure as I've pulled through the thread that they line up and that they sit nice and tightly together. What you want to do is pack up this whole entire shape with as much thread as possible. Now if you do have some of these double lines, and I know that further down we do have some of these double lines, just sort of like grab them together and use them as one weave position. Anything that's spread out in terms of the thread you want to use as an individual anchoring point, if that makes sense. Again, I'm using the needle just to drag all of these threads together, and I'm going to keep doing that throughout the whole entirety of this weave, and slowly but surely it will pack up with so much thread that before you know it, you won't even need to do that anymore. you go further down the face, you'll notice that all of these threads obviously come to one point at the center in the chin, and it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get through all of these threads as they bunch tighter together and your weave gets closer and closer. Don't worry too much about that. Just pick out the top ones that you can get easy access to, and then leave the bottom ones on the back and just use those ones to weave under, over, under, over. Just remember to keep this basically very, very even, if that makes sense. Try not to lose your weave. As I come to the end part of the face, what I'm going to do, because it starts to get quite rounded and quite rotund, I'm going to make sure that I do not pull this thread in any way, shape or form too tightly at all. It's got to be pulled really nice and just tight enough so that I'm not pulling this shape in and starting to distort the weave. Okay, so as you come towards the end, you're going to see that there's very, very few lines of weave left to go through. So just try and go through whatever you can at this point. It doesn't really matter too much, because so long as the weave is nice and even, you're not really going to notice. And also we're going to stitch over this. So again, it really doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter as well about the very edges. They will be a bit loose. They will look a little bit baggy in places. Don't worry about that. We're going to stitch into it. So it's really not important. And once I'm done, I'm just going to take that thread through to the bottom and remove my pins. I'm not going to remove the pins at the very top where the sort of top of the eyes will be, but all of the other pins I am going to remove. Okay, so next I'm going to finish off filling out the top of the eyes. So I'm just going to take the same purple that I did before, and I'm just going to tie the beginnings of a knot. So I'm not going to go over twice, but just merely once, really nice and tight here. At this point, try and do it as tight as possible so it's really nice and seamless. And I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and just snip off that excess right there. And then I'm going to continue on my weave until I've filled in the whole of this eye area, like so. So I'm going to finish that off with a simple buttonhole stitch at the top here, just going through that loop nice and tight, and then chop it off, and I'm going to repeat that same process on the opposite side. So once you repeated that process on the opposite side, you're going to have something that looks very similar to this. And now all I'm going to do is pad the inside. So I've got 2 layers of felt here, carefully traced over, and I'm just going to use a fine needle and a double strand of white cotton, and I'm just going to place a big tacking stitch here in the middle just to hold it down, and then I'm going to stitch all the way around the outside. If you've watched any of my other videos on padding or anything like that, or you're a student of mine, you'll know exactly what to do. I overstitch this, I almost stitch it too much just to make sure that I've got a really nice sort of curved surface. I'm just going to carry on stitching it until it's all in place. So once that's done and finished, you'll just need to flop over your finished shape on top of the felt, and then using a similar coloured thread, you're just going to start stitching the ends over the top of that felt. Make sure that there are loads and loads and loads of stitches. You almost want to stitch too much just to make sure that you're stitching into any of these baggy areas, any of these little gaps where you can see the felt is like covered over, and it's really nice and solid. Okay, so once I've done that, I'm actually going to start drawing on with a water-soluble pen and then a normal black pen, my Ursula face design. Now I'm actually doing this freehand, but there is a simple trick that you can do if you want to get this extremely accurate. Now, because I am working with a black pen, I've used obviously the water-soluble pen at first just to make sure that it is completely perfect, because the thing with Disney characters is if you don't get the facial features exactly right, it's kind of not going to look like the character that you intended. So just take your time with this. A great top tip if you're concerned about the placement of your eyes and mouth is to just actually take the tracing that you drew around in the first instance, cut the eyes and the mouth out, place it back over the top of this felted shape, and then draw those on. And then you can just go ahead and add all of the finer details. I am not concerned about actually using this black pen because I'm going to outline all of this in black anyway, and because I'm going to be needle painting, I can just go over any of the stray black lines. So once we're finished, you really won't notice it at all. Okay, so next I'm just going to add a simple French knot with just a single strand of black thread, and I'm going to be using a fine beading needle for all of the face detail, and I'm just going to use this French knot to simulate her mole that Ursula has on her left side. Okay, so next I'm going to take the same thread and needle, super fine needle, and I'm going to begin outlining all of the black lines that you can see. I'm just going to be using a simple back stitch for this. Keep it nice and short, particularly when you're going around curvature areas. You don't want it to look straight and blocky. Okay, so once that's done, you should have something that looks like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill in the whites of the eyes. Now I'm just using the same white thread that I actually used for the felt here, doubled it over, and then I'm just going to add some black back in on the pupil, just because it was starting to get lost amongst all of the white, and then finish off filling out the white. Repeat on the other side, and then I'm going to take this blue thread and I'm actually going to use it above her eyes. She's got like this blue eyeshadow. And once I've done that, you should have something that looks like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the grey. Now Ursula in the cartoon actually has like a grey under eye bag on her eyes, and she also has like the top of her between her eyelids and her brows in grey. So I'm just going to shade this in now. Again, I'm just using back stitch or couching this stitch into place. It depends on what I feel like doing, just to make sure that I get all of the grey around. Okay, so next I'm going to do her upper eyeshadow. So obviously this is like her brow bone. I'm going to use the same grey, and I'm going to do one side of the eye, and then I'm going to repeat on the other side of the eye, just going down to where the eyelid stops, and then I'm just going to do a single straight line in between these two brow sections here until I've gone all the way to the top and it's completely filled in, and then I'm going to repeat that on the other side. Next, I'm going to take a nice ruby red and I'm going to fill out her lips. Now, my drawing was slightly off, so I'm going to correct that as I'm thread painting. I'm just going to take some single, nice long stitches, take them down. I think I'm using 3 strands of a cotton floss here, probably around about 3, certainly no more than 3. And I'm just going to fill in that section like so. And then, because I'm not very happy with the line that I actually drew for the teeth, I'm going to go ahead and just fill this whole section in white, Again, I'm using this double strand of cotton on a fine needle, and I'm just going to go straight over that black line and fill in the whole of the section. I'm going to put a little couching stitch in this initial stitch just to make sure that it's not hiding the black line of her lips. And then I'm just going to fill that in, and I'm going to add that black line in on her teeth once I've covered up any of these little stray straggly bits that you can see with the purple. So this line, I'm not going to pull it too straight. I don't think, I'm just going to keep like a slight curvature there, but I probably won't use a couching stitch to keep it in place. It depends on how much it moves, but yeah, that looks pretty much perfect to me. So again, not going to pull this too straight, just going to leave it slightly loose so that I get that really nice curvature that she has in the cartoon. So it's looking really good so far, I'm really happy, but one thing's missing, and that is like the line, the outlining of her cheekbones that she actually has. So I'm just going to pop those in here. It's just a couple of straight stitches just to outline where the tops of her cheeks would be. And then I'm just going to fill out some of her lashes. Ursula in the cartoon actually has quite a few lashes, but I don't want to go mad for my version because I feel like it's going to get lost. So I've just done a few here, and then I'm going to add some lines for the hair in some water soluble pen. And I'm going to begin my woven picot. Now for my woven picot, I'm actually using a double strand of white perle cotton. So this is what double stranded over with a knot at the bottom, and I'm just going to do some woven picots. Obviously it's very similar stitch to the stitch that we initially done for Ursula's face. The only difference is obviously it's a really simple triangle shape that you're going to be doing. Pop a pin in one of those lines, come up, go down, and then come up again, go around the top of that pin like so, and then begin that weave under and over until you've completely filled up your space. So once I've finished the woven picot, I'm just going to stitch it into place how I want her hair to sit, like so, and then I'm going to repeat that on the opposite side with another woven picot, a third woven picot next to the first woven picot. I'm just going to manipulate them also with my fingers, add a fourth one in like so here, and then a final big one is going to go here just at the front of the hair like so. Okay, so once I've finished this large woven picot, I'm just going to start manipulating it, picking it up, making sure that it sits really nice and sort of zhuzhy at the front, and then I'm just going to couch it into place with my needle once I'm happy with how all of the hair is sitting. So almost done. The last steps is to just add some ears, because she has some ears with these really cute little earrings. So I'm actually going to use a bullion knot for this, but I'm going to stagger it. So just watch what I do. I'm going to come up, go down, and then come up again near the original spot right here. I'm going to start wrapping the thread around my needle like so. Keep those wraps reasonably loose so that you can pull the needle straight through. And make sure they're long enough for them to be enough to cover the line of the ear and also enough for the curve, so just slightly longer. Pull those through, and once it's really nice and tight and you can pull no more, go down with your needle actually where the ear stops in the curve, and you'll see that that makes a really nice little curved ear. I'm going to put a couching stitch straight on the middle here just to hold that ear into place. And you'll see it's pretty much perfect. So repeat that on the opposite side, and then it's time to give her some earrings. So I'm going to come up with this really nice blue cotton perle thread that I've got. And I'm going to do a small drizzle stitch. So I'm going to take the threads out of the needle like so, and then I'm just going to add a couple of cast on stitches. I think I used around about 4 or 5 stitches for this, so not too big. You just want a detached stitch that's going to be able to have some movement and articulation and look really cute at her earlobes. Rethread the needle, and then pull it down, and there you have your first earring. Repeat on the other side with the needle, the same drizzle stitch, same thread obviously. And you'll have something that looks like this. And this is it. This is the end of Ursula. I am really pleased actually with how this turned out, and I really hope to carry on doing some different well-known characters in the future. Let me know what you think. Please put your comments, questions, suggestions down below in the comment box, and I really hope to see you next time. Thank you so much for all the support, all the lovely comments that I get here and on Instagram. It means the absolute world. See you again in another video. Bye.